This is Bre Irish with KORC, News, Music, and Civics. The Oregon Legislature is preparing to reconvene next month for their short session. Folks may know that the Oregon Legislature switches between long and short sessions, with the short session landing on even number years. This session will be around 35 days, depending. This session is already jam-packed with legislation and priorities, and it's sure to make waves across the state. Oregonians are sure to recall the fight that took place over the ODOT funding package that raised taxes and fees on Oregonians to support ODOT operations and hundreds of jobs. The bill was contentious and passed on party lines mostly in a special session that was delayed due to medical reasons for Senator Gorsuch of Gresham. As soon as the bill passed, it was sent to Governor Kotek's desk. She delayed signing the bill for as long as she legally could, to delay the opposition's efforts to put the tax increases on the ballot for a vote. Folks opposed to the gas taxes had to wait to start gathering signatures until Governor Kotek signed the bill. The delay didn't stop them, though, and they gathered the requisite signatures to get the taxes on the ballot for November. In a surprise twist, Governor Kotek then called for a complete repeal of the package that she herself pushed for. In yet another twist, news broke recently that a legal opinion from 1935 could prevent the repeal of this legislation. This maneuver by Governor Kotek to avoid the referendum vote on the taxes by repealing the entire piece of legislation seems to not be allowed, as decided by our former Attorney General, I.H. Van Winkle. Van Winkle wrote in 1935, "The right of the people to a referendum vote on a statute enacted by the legislature cannot be defeated by a subsequent repeal of the act referred." Folks in Oregon widely assumed that this move by Kotek was an attempt to avoid answering for unpopular tax increases when she herself will also be on the ballot this coming November. Kotek spokeswoman Elizabeth Shepard said the governor wasn't aware of the 1935 opinion when she asked for the repeal of this legislation, and said the legislature will be doing its due diligence on how to best proceed. While our current Attorney General's office has not yet formed a legal opinion of the situation, and Democrats in the legislature haven't taken a position since Kotek's request for repeal, House Minority Leader Lucetta Elmer had this to say: "When more than 250,000 people sign a petition demanding a vote, the response should be transparency and request, not backroom maneuvering," Elmer said. "This is about trusting the people, following the Constitution, and letting voters decide for themselves." That's not where the to-do list ends. Oregon's Secretary of State has come out ahead of the campaign finance reform set to be implemented next year. Tobias Read has requested $25 million from lawmakers in the upcoming 5-week session to help implementation of our new campaign finance laws stay on track. Legislators passed campaign finance reform in 2024 and knew then that it still needed technical fixes. The state legislature missed their opportunity to address this last year, and this short session could be the only time to fix this before they're implemented in 2027. Because of this tight timeline, some lawmakers are expressing support for delaying this implementation. Without the necessary clarification and guidance that would come from clarification of the law, rollout of these new campaign finance regulations could be botched and make life harder for everyone. Lawmakers have known that this bill would require fixes and more funding, and have kicked the can down the road since its passage in 2024. They allotted around $5 million to the Secretary of State's office right after the bill originally passed, but since then, they've procrastinated on acting. In addition to all this, lawmakers themselves have their own priorities for bills that they want to pass. Corvallis' own Senator Sarah Gelser-Bluen announced that she will be reintroducing her child welfare bills from last year. The bills, which expand the list of rights given to foster youth in Oregon and overhaul the child abuse investigation process, were ultimately vetoed by Governor Kotek last year. One of the vetoes was overridden in the Oregon Senate, but ultimately failed in the Oregon House. Governor Kotek said that these pieces of legislation would have added greater complexity and confusion to Oregon's already fragmented statutory framework for child abuse investigations. Governor Kotek would have rathered her bill, which already failed, to be passed. The bill that the governor wanted lowered regulations around the transfer and seclusion of children in out-of-state facilities, a policy that Oregon ended in 2020 because it led to the abuse of children. Gelser believes that these new pieces of legislation have been updated to address the governor's concerns around the child abuse investigations and ensures the right to access personal belongings for foster youth. In addition to all this, Oregon State Democrats announced new legislation on Wednesday which would take aim at the agenda of chaos and lawlessness that the Trump administration has been unleashing on the nation and our state. Some of the bills introduced to push up against the out-of-bounds immigration chaos would prevent law enforcement officers from concealing their identities and attempts to restrict the state from contracting with companies that support deportation efforts. Corvallis's own Sarah Finger McDonald is also pushing a measure that would require school districts throughout the state to have clear policies on what to do if immigration officials arrive at their school. It would also require the schools to inform students, parents, and community members when federal immigration officers are on school property. It's very clear that there is a lot on the Oregon Legislature's plate this upcoming session, with more sure to come. This is Bre Irish with KORC, News, Music, and Civics.